Over the years, a lot of radio voices and perhaps have not seen those radio faces. Sit back and relax because we have for you the living legends of KJET Radio. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Heard what I said earlier, and perhaps for some of those viewers who down through the years have not heard about some of these living legends, and certainly it is a pleasure to actually present them to you. For most of you perhaps have heard them over the years, over the radio, but not actually seen what they look like. Now, you can make your own decision as to whether they look like what they sound like or not. Mr. Tudy, so you're not a living legend.
Not yet.
But you are the coordinator of the Living Legend program.
Yes, Wayne. I tell you what happened. I was on my way from Austin, and I was channel surfing in the car, and I realized every radio station I turned to, it sounded like a jukebox. Okay. And I'm going, hold it. You know, when I was coming up, I just couldn't wait to get to the radio to hear guys like Cal Weaver, Willie K, Gerald Loeb, and LJ Lloyd Jones.
Okay. Now, before we go any further, we want these two gentlemen next to you, the one closest to you, to say something without telling his name in his radio voice.
You know, I'm just honored to be a part of the celebration that's going to take place in June, in fact, June 19th.
Okay.
Well, it's a pleasure for me to be here. I was on the radio for about 10 years.
Okay, now Mr. Dewar, so that's really not what I had in mind. I thought this other gentleman would say, I'm such and such, you know, he knows what. Not say that, please.
I'm LJ.
Now we got you.
I'm Big Daddy Cal.
Now the people know who they're looking at.
Right.
Mr. Lloyd Jones, LJ,
right.
And Big Daddy Cal Weaver, Mr.
Right.
Cal Weaver. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's good for you all to come and let the viewers at home actually see what you look like after all these years. Again, now, the Living Legends program is going to be on
KLO 1250 radio station, and it's going to be in the month of June. June is Black Music Month,
okay.
And we'll have it on June the 19th from 5 a.m. in the morning, starting off with Brother Gerald Loeb, and then following Willie K and Cal Weaver. And I definitely want to mention Cal Weaver was like my mentor, and I'm his mentee. So it's an honor for me, you know, to even sit here with Cal, like Lloyd mentioned earlier. But anyway, back to the program. We'll start at 5 a.m. that morning of June the 19th, and the program will end at 8 a.m., ending with LJ Lloyd Jones, 8 p.m.
And basically the listeners will get to hear the legends return to the airwaves.
Yes, because matter of fact, I talked with Willie and talked with Lloyd and Cal. I said, well, what do y'all think about the idea of coming back? Because in my opinion, like I mentioned earlier, everybody sounded like now. And back in the days when Lloyd and Willie, Cal, and Loeb came up, they were personalities. You don't have any personality jocks. I'm considered a personality jock, but you don't have personality jocks anymore. And so I'm looking forward to it. And also Willie K with Solarama, we're going to try to do that also.
Let's talk about back in the day. Tell us about radio as you remember it back in the day, Mr. Jones.
Personality, as Tudy stated, and by the way, Tudy, I'm personality radio today. I work part-time, of course, at KLO 1250 from noon on Saturday until 6 o'clock. It's totally different as far as the music is concerned. When I was in radio back in the 70s, I considered it true music. It meant something. It said something. And today, we don't get as much released music that says something as we did in those days.
Okay. Mr. Weaver, would you be the senior statesman of this group of living legends?
You might say that.
Okay. So tell us about radio when you started.
Well, I started in radio back in Savannah, Georgia, right out of the military in 1958. And I migrated to Beaumont, Texas, following that almighty dollar. And I would like to emphasize what he just said. Back when I started in radio, it was personality radio. Everybody on his ship did his or her own thing, and had to create that sound that the listeners would tune in for. And but the present day radio sounds more like a jukebox, right, with 40 selections, and you hear the same thing over and over and over again.
So back then, basically, you gentlemen had more flexibility as to, I guess, what you played and how you basically handled your own show?
Precisely. We had, back when I was with KJET, we had a top 40 format, but we had, there weren't too many constraints placed on us. We had a lot of flexibility.
Right.
It kind of I personally like jazz, and my shows were kind of had a jazz flavor. Like a Boy Brown would come on, and he liked Jim McGriff, Jimmy Smith, organ music, and his shows were flavored that way. King Arthur was a blues man. Willie K was a teeny bopper.
We'll talk about that.
Still a teeny bopper. You know what though?
The 60. Go ahead.
Not to interrupt you. I think one of the strong points is that we had fun doing radio.
Thank you.
We did.
Okay, that was basically where I was going to go next. What did you enjoy most about radio back then? Though you're still working, but back then, in a different era.
Back then, as Cal Weaver just stated, that we had more flexibility. We had the listener would call, and they could talk with the personality on the air. And we went out into the community. We met the listener. We enjoyed that.
Okay.
Nowadays, you don't have that.
Your favorite recollection?
Well, a lot of times a guy would do a show, and he would get out into, like you said, get out into the community, and the people that was listening would let you know whether or not you did a good job.
Mm-hmm.
Today's jocks, they'll go out and solicit compliments.
Okay.
Yeah, did you hear me today? How did I sound?
Okay.
Let me tell you, if you put a bad product on the air, somebody would tell you whether it was good or bad. You didn't have to solicit compliments.
Okay.
And it was just a fun thing back in those days.
Okay.
With the personality and the flexibility that we had on the air with the choice of music.
Okay. Speaking of music, and certainly we will never have enough time to have 4 radio jocks on the air and everybody get everything.
Right.
But has music changed considerably? Good, bad, in the middle?
There will never be the music of the 60s, the Temps, the Motown sound, the Memphis group, and all that. I don't think so. That was real music. Wayne, let me say this briefly. If you listen to a lot of commercials on television today, they're using a lot of music that was popular back in the day. I heard a commercial on television the other day. They were using Green Onions by Booker T and the MGs, which was a tremendous hit during the 60s.
Well, same applies to movies too. My Girl, Stand By Me.
Now, back then, did the radio personalities have more of an opportunity to actually meet these singers in person? Did you have an opportunity to meet the Temptations or people like, as compared to maybe the ease of disc jockeys now actually meeting the recording artists?
Go ahead.
Oh yes, definitely. I've met quite a few of the superstars back in the 70s, and I think we had a good relationship. You could you'd get their phone numbers, you could call them and ask them to do you a favor as far as maybe doing a promo over the telephone. So you can
now, were you calling them, or you calling a middleman who called another middleman who called another, or did you get to actually talk to?
If you became close friends with the artist, they could give you a number where you could reach them directly, and that is if you establish a good relationship with them. You know, so you did have a chance to meet quite a few entertainers. Nowadays, especially here in Beaumont, we don't have the concerts that we had back in those days.
Okay.
So the jocks don't have an opportunity unless they go to Houston maybe to meet some of the artists.
A lot of the older black entertainers often talk about, or you read about, when they were, I guess, basically getting their start, they would come through Southeast Texas. That was the place where they could actually go and perform. Was it the same with radio, where they would get their records played?
Yeah, a lot of record representatives would come through Beaumont first and then go on over to Houston and leave records for us to play to see if they would break out in this area. And if a record would break out in the Golden Triangle area, oftentimes Houston would get the credit, but it actually broke in the Golden Triangle area. That happened quite a lot.
Right. Now, Mr. Deuce, I think you're going to have a problem on Saturday, whatever day this is going to be. You know, if you're going from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. that night, it's still not going to be enough time.
Right. Exactly.
Right. Okay. Well, in that vein, we're going to take a short break right here. We're going to see if we can bring on 2 more faces and let them do what we asked each gentleman to do it first, and let the viewers put the name to the voice. Gentlemen, thank you and congratulations. Again, ladies and gentlemen, some of the living legends of KJET Radio. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back. Now we're rolling.
I'm Gerald.
Gerald Loeb, and a pleasant good day or good afternoon. I'm your host, Gerald Loeb.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Willie Knighton, Mr. Gerald Loeb, two more of the living legends of KJET Radio. Mr. Durso, again, you got your hands full.
Yes, exactly. When I tell you, listen to Willie said in 1901, and that's what I was talking about. We talked about personality radio, and the kids look forward to coming to the radio on weekdays, and also, I think Solarama, Willie, that was
Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, Sunday afternoon.
Okay, but now, we must be hearing two different things. That's not what Mr. Weaver said. I think Mr. Weaver referenced Teeny Bopper. I think he said something a little bit different about it. But anyway, radio back then.
Back then, Wayne, it was basically, well, it was all personality radio. We had a full range to do basically what we wanted to do. We played, and we were more or less entertainers as well as radio personalities.
Had a lot of fun.
A lot of fun. We met a lot of people, and we met a lot of different artists that we were, just different meetings. There's a lot of camaraderie, just a whole lot of getting together.
Solarama.
Solarama was a thing that was considered, I think, around 1966. It was a teenage dance done live. We did a live show Sunday afternoons from 2 to 5 on KJET, and I was host of that show from 1966 until possibly around 1979 or thereabout. No, I'm sorry, it started even before that and ended. And 69 or 70, right, is when it ended. But it was a membership type thing. The kids would sign up. They were members of it was then called the Zell Solarama, the KJET Zell Solarama Club. And we did teenage dances live, as I said, Sunday afternoon. And we did dances in Houston at KCOH, one of the other radio stations there. And we would have little field trips and all, and just a whole lot of fun. And sometimes Friday nights following the football games, which was between Hebert and Charlton at that time.
That was the game.
That was the game, yes. We would have a Friday night edition of the Solarama Record Hop. Speaking of Solarama, we're going to do a version of the Solarama 1999 on June 18th, and it will be held at the ILA Local Hall on Sabine Pass. And it will start promptly around 9 and end somewhere in the neighborhood of 1. And I just want to tell all the Solarama members, whether you're...
Well, if you're going to get those Solarama members from back then, they'll probably from 9 to 9:30.
No, they'll be warmed up by then. We want them all. We don't want them to meet me. I want them to beat me. Yeah. So we're going to have a lot of fun that Friday night, June 18th.
Okay. Mr. Lowe.
I come in on the broom.
Okay.
On the broom, yeah. I was a janitor.
Okay.
And I started in 1958.
Okay.
And still in radio, still awake, K-Lo, from 12 until 6 on Sundays.
You were the janitor. What pushed you to say, well, let me try this. I can do this.
What I did when I cleaned up, I look at Boy Brown doing the board, and I said, I'm gonna try this one day. So I told Boy Brown about it, and he told me, he said, well, Loeb, I tell you what you do, he said. When we leave at night,
okay,
do a dry run.
Okay.
You know, you won't be on air. Okay. So I set up, I did the dry run for about, I guess about 5 or 6 months.
Okay.
And then I told him, come in, I want to show you something.
Okay.
So he said, well, you're not ready yet, Loeb. I said, okay. And I kept going until Roger Wells, he was doing gospel. And after Roger Wells was getting ready to leave, he was relocating, see, over to Houston, I believe. He told me, he said, Loeb, he said, you need to get on air, make you some better money. So I told him, okay. I went out, got my license, and went to work on air.
Okay, tell us about that first broadcast.
The first broadcast.
Because here in the back of your mind, I used to be the janitor, and now I'm on the air. Okay, tell us about that first
broadcast. At first we had news, you know, during the program. And that was a hard one. We had a little thing say, it's a little beeper, you know. And then you holler, here's that news. See? Okay, sometime I forget and just freeze. After the beep.
When we've mentioned on more than one occasion. Certainly, it would be good for either of you gentlemen to reference and share with our viewers something about the legendary Boy Brown.
Boy Brown was probably instrumental in a lot of, well, especially in myself. Boy challenged me back in 1954. He told me that I could never be a radio personality. And when you challenge me, that's kind of like, you know, making me go out and prove you wrong. So I started in 1954, and my tenure with KJET ended in 1977. And I was just there. I was just going to prove Boy Brown that he was wrong. And when I started in radio, and I'm proud to say that there was nothing in radio that I did not do or could not do, because we did news, production, commercials. I did gospel show, jazz. There's nothing in radio today that I cannot do, and there's nothing. We just have the whole ram of everything. And boy, as I said again, he was, and maybe he may have did it to try and make you bring out the best in you, but he was one of those type of guys that would challenge you.
And he was certainly renowned outside of the Southeast Texas
Boy Brown was, he was, now Boy would make you know him. Didn't make any difference where he would go. We would go to NATRA, it's called the National Association of Radio and Television Artists Conventions, once a year. And it didn't make any difference who was there. Boy Brown would make sure that all of those artists knew him. And I heard you earlier ask, if you call the artist, could you talk directly with him? Of course we could. We had direct phone numbers to the homes in a lot of cases. You also asked about some of the artists that we had met. I had the honor, I don't remember the year, but it was in the 70s of presenting, no, the 60s, presenting to the Temptations at the Coliseum in downtown Houston a plaque from the Solarama Club. So we personally met with Stevie Wonder, Isaac Hayes. It's just too numerous to mention. I mean, we could sit here all day and talk about artists that we've met. Right. The Boy was a good guy.
Okay, and I think he had a close relationship with James Brown.
Of course, yeah, very definitely.
Okay, again, June 19th in conjunction with Black Music Month. KLO Radio, the Legends of KLO of KJET return.
Yes.
From 5 a.m.
From 5 a.m. That Saturday morning until 8 p.m. at night. And Wayne, I just also want to mention, like Willie mentioned earlier, that was one of the ways that I got Willie and Calvin to come back, because like he mentioned, it was always a challenge. And to me, they are still jocks, and they can still come back and do the same job they did back in the day. And I tell them all the time, you know, when I was coming, well, even now, jocks now couldn't have got in the studio to even sweep it up.
And certainly it's good to have something to recognize, and certainly it's good that all of them will have the opportunity to come, because for the most part, probably a lot of our viewers here in Southeast Texas have always heard the voices, but don't know what the faces look like. Again, to these two legends and the other two legends that were on, gentlemen, again, congratulations for your many years of service and fun here in Southeast Texas on the airways, and good luck. And let's hope that Solarama goes all night long.
It will.
Okay, and thank you, Mr. Urso, for putting this whole program together to honor these living legends and KLO Radio.
And I thank you, Wayne, for giving us the opportunity.
All right, and we certainly would like to thank our viewers for watching, and hope to see you again on Speaking of People.